At exactly 4:15 in the afternoon on Thanksgiving in the backyard of my Aunt Karen Reed in Chesapeake, Virginia, I learned that family can hurt more than any battlefield. I had barely set my plate down when my cousin Tyler raised a Bluetooth speaker and pressed play. At first there was static and laughter, then a fake female voice pretending to speak on a military radio. It was high-pitched dramatic and embarrassing. She pretended to scream contact while people at the table choked on laughter. The cousins slapped each other's arms. The neighbors leaned over the fence to watch the show. Sabrina Tyler's girlfriend was already live streaming, talking to her phone like she was a reporter exposing a fraud. Everyone turned toward me. I felt every pair of eyes, and then Tyler threw a printed catering bill across the table. The wind blew the paper into my lap. $480 for the turkey dinner. He said one sentence that cut deeper than the fake radio call. If you are a hero, pay for the turkey. His voice was loud enough for the entire block. Someone clinked a fork against a glass like they were toasting. I did not move. I did not yell. I touched the challenge coin in my pocket. The metal was cold. There was a small shadow box wrapped in black cloth inside my bag, but I kept it hidden. I looked at the flag hung near the grill, bright against the late afternoon light. Smoke from the barbecue carried the smell of spices and charcoal. Plates clattered. Teenagers shouted. Someone opened another bottle of cider. My Aunt Karen laughed nervously and told everyone to stop bringing up war at her dinner table. That sentence hurt more than the bill. My mother Denise lowered her eyes. My grandmother May reached for my hand under the table, but said nothing. In that moment, I stayed silent because tin lang is something you learn, not something you pretend. Tyler leaned back, proud of the humiliation. Sabrina zoomed her phone closer to my face for the live stream. Her voice was sugary sweet as she told her viewers that I only played drone games and that I was not real military. People laughed louder. Someone called me keyboard soldier. Someone else asked what level I had reached. I swallowed once carefully because if I answered in anger, they would win. My phone vibrated inside my pocket. A short voice clip from an old teammate had arrived. I pressed the screen only long enough to see the waveform, then quickly locked it. But a single second had been enough. A real radio voice, low, calm, unmistakable. The words Falcon 2, lacing, friendlies crossing came through before I stopped it. My blood turned to ice. For one breath, the yard fell completely silent. Not because they believed me, but because the voice was real. Sabrina blinked, confused. Tyler frowned. And then my uncle Jack Reed, who had been sitting quietly at the end of the table, lifted his head. He is a United States Navy SEAL. He never jokes about radios or call signs. He only nodded once, and then he watched. Tyler saw his confusion and raced to cover it with another joke. He said I had downloaded audio from the internet. People laughed again. The humiliation returned like a wave. My chest stayed still, my breathing soft. I looked directly at Tyler and said in a voice so quiet that only he heard it, "Apologize. Now." He laughed again. My grandmother squeezed my hand harder. She pulled $20 from her purse, slipped it into my palm, and whispered for me to buy more pumpkin pie even though there was enough to feed a small army. That kindness broke something inside me. The humiliation, the fake radio voice, the live stream, the bill, the way everyone treated me like a joke. Every part of it burned, but I still did not shout. I remembered the desert, the endless night sky, the sound of rotors mixed with wind, and the quiet heartbeat of people who trusted a voice they could not see. In war, silence can save lives. In my family, silence was being mistaken for weakness. I looked at Tyler again and said nothing. I tucked the challenge coin back into my pocket. I felt the weight of the shadow box inside my bag. If they wanted proof, I would not argue. I would not explain. I would simply present. So I sat down, lifted my fork, and ate a bite of cold turkey while they continued laughing. They thought the humiliation was finished. They did not know that secrets do not stay buried forever, especially not when a SEAL is listening. I whispered to myself in a tone so soft that only I could hear it. I will not shout. I will present. and when the truth lands, no one at this table will laugh. The moment the plates were cleared and the leftovers wrapped in foil, the real trouble began. Aunt Karen started assigning chores with the cheerful voice she used when she wanted order without conflict, but everyone knew a storm was already building. Tyler leaned against the kitchen island as if he owned the entire house. His eyes kept flicking toward me, waiting for another chance to make a scene. He found it faster than anyone expected. While Denise and Aunt Karen carried trays to the sink, Tyler unlocked his phone and opened the Reed family group chat on the television through screen mirroring. The enormous screen above the fireplace lit up with bright bubbles of messages, and at first people laughed because it looked funny and harmless. Then he scrolled to a single screenshot that made the laughter stop. It was a cut and edited version of messages that I never wrote, arranged to look like I had been demanding attention and bragging about secret missions. He zoomed in on a sentence that read, "I deserve respect because I am the only real soldier here." The words were pasted together from older, unrelated messages, but no one needed to be a digital expert to see the jumps and mismatched spacing. Still, the damage was done. Sabrina gasped dramatically and told her live stream that the truth had just been exposed. Someone in the backyard shouted for people to come look. Aunt Karen covered her mouth and stared at the screen with wide, confused eyes, as if she believed it, but wished she did not. My mother Denise stepped forward and quietly said that the screenshot looked wrong, but Tyler just tapped again and again, repeating that I was always begging for attention. He said my call sign was a gamer tag and that my so-called service was a fantasy. The humiliation grew layer by layer. He asked me to stand and read a little speech, thanking the family for pretending to support a soldier who never fought. He made it sound like a joke, but his voice had the eager, sharp edge of someone who wanted to keep going until something snapped. A few cousins laughed and chanted speech, and someone recorded the moment on their phone. Tyler lifted the catering bill again and waved it like a flag. $480 for the turkey and sides, plus another $120 for wine. He told the room that if a hero was present, then the hero should pay. He claimed he was only asking for fairness. What made it worse was how ordinary it looked. Just family cleaning up after Thanksgiving with one cousin poking another, but beneath the normal surface was the sharp cruelty only toxic family members understand. I breathed once slow and deep. I stayed seated. If I had shouted, they would have smiled even bigger. So I simply said, "I will handle my part, but I will not read anything for you." Tyler laughed and told everyone to watch how quickly a fake soldier becomes quiet when asked to speak about service. Aunt Karen forced another smile and asked everyone to stop, but she did not make Tyler apologize. That is the part people on the outside never understand. It is not always loud abuse. Sometimes it is the quiet permission of people who should know better. I opened the note app on my phone and typed a single line, "Exhibit a group chat edit." Then I closed it again. No one noticed. My grandmother May walked over and slipped a small folded $20 bill into my hand. She whispered, "You can get more pumpkin pie if the first one is gone." Her voice shook. She was trying to protect me with the only weapon she had, kindness. The simple gesture made my heart twist. I said thank you and kissed her cheek. Behind us, Tyler rolled his eyes like generosity toward me was a waste of money. Sabrina asked her livestream followers if fake stolen valor counted as a crime. People laughed harder. Someone asked if the military let people in for community service. Another cousin said if Riley had really done anything, she would not be back home eating turkey with them. She would be overseas doing real work. The comments were casual, but each one stung like a slap. Stolen valor, fake soldier, keyboard warrior, drone gamer. Every insult hit the same spot. They wanted me to defend myself loudly because that would be entertainment. But if years in uniform taught me anything, it is that noise does not always equal strength. I walked to the sink and picked up a stack of plates without being asked. I rinsed them while Tyler told the room I was doing chores to avoid paying the bill. Aunt Karen tried to speak for peace, but the damage was already done. The trust that should exist in a family had been replaced by a spotlight of humiliation. My mother, Denise, touched my shoulder and whispered that she believed me, but her eyes were tired and sad. She'd been fighting this same battle in smaller ways for years. She did not have the energy to fight this round. I carried a stack of dishes to the counter and heard Sabrina ask her viewers to vote on whether heroes pay for dinner. The yard erupted in laughter. In that moment, the humiliation settled like a stone inside my chest. I looked at Tyler and said one sentence: "I have nothing to prove to you." He told me I had everything to prove because real soldiers had families who were proud, and clearly no one here was proud of me. It was a threadbare comment, but sharp enough to pull the whole room with him. The worst part was how ordinary everyone tried to act. Someone opened another drink. Someone wiped down the table. Someone checked the football score on television. People pretend they are just having fun while they watch someone else be destroyed. I touched the challenge coin in my pocket again. Cold metal, smooth edges, a simple reminder that my worth did not come from their laughter. I took a slow breath and sat back in my chair. If they wanted a show, they would get one, but not the one they expected. I would not yell. I would not defend. I would present. And when the truth came, it would be quiet and final. Have you ever sat at a dinner table and felt family betrayal happen in real time while everyone else laughed and pretended it was just a joke? The humiliation did not slow down after the group chat stunt. If anything, it grew bolder because the crowd realized I was not fighting back. Sabrina lifted her phone again and announced to her live stream that she had a brilliant idea. She smiled in that sugary way people use when they want to hurt, while pretending to be playful. She told her viewers she would start a new game called Who Pays for the Turkey? She walked in a slow circle around the table so every guest could be seen in her video, and she asked them to vote on whether a real hero should pay for the meal. A chorus of laughter rose from the backyard, even from people who had stayed quiet earlier. Someone shouted that heroes are generous. Another yelled that maybe the military forgot to send my paycheck. Aunt Karen tried to hush them, but her voice was drowned out by applause and joking. I did not move. My hands stayed folded on my lap. I felt the $20 bill from Grandmother May pressed against my palm. That little folded paper felt heavier than the entire table of guests. Tyler saw the silence as weakness. He walked behind me, grabbed the back of my chair, and pulled it away from the table. The legs scraped loudly on the concrete patio. He laughed and told his younger brother to take my seat because a man of the house should sit at the table, not a keyboard soldier. His brother only shrugged and sat down embarrassed, but too intimidated to refuse. I stood for a second, unsure whether to reach for the chair or walk away. The room waited to see if I would cry or shout or lose my composure. I simply took a breath, walked to the edge of the seating area, and sat in a lonely white plastic chair near the grill. The air smelled of smoke spices and cold November wind. A paper plate slid across the table and landed on the ground near my feet. No one picked it up. Sabrina pointed her camera toward me and told her viewers to look at how the hero had been demoted to the kids' table. The comments rolled across her screen. People laughed and asked if I would salute before taking a bite of turkey. That small joke, so petty and so childish, struck harder than the earlier insults. It showed how comfortable everyone felt, humiliating someone who stayed quiet. Aunt Karen finally stepped in and told Sabrina to turn the video off. Sabrina said she was just having fun and wanted her followers to see how families handle freeloaders. I watched her smiling at her phone, enjoying the attention of strangers more than the dignity of anyone present. The worst part was that no one else told her to stop. They just watched. The paper plate on the ground fluttered in the wind. My mother started to rise, but Tyler raised his voice and told her to relax, because it was all a joke. Then he snapped his fingers and told the group that if the bill was too much for a gamer soldier, they could divide it. He suggested that everyone pay $40 each, since comfort and luxury were expensive when a Navy SEAL was at the table. People chuckled and pulled out wallets. Someone said it was fair. Someone else said money is no problem when everyone shares. In 5 minutes, a pile of cash sat in the middle of the table. Aunt Karen sorted the bills and coins with an embarrassed smile. She announced the total and said there was extra money beyond the cost of the meal. People nodded and told her to split the change between the contributors. That was when the second humiliation hit. Aunt Karen pointed at each family member and said their names, handing them a small envelope with change. When she reached me, she hesitated. Then she skipped my name and continued handing envelopes to everyone else. She did not even look at me. She simply passed over my empty chair. The message was clear. I was expected to pay, but I was not welcome to receive. It was a tiny thing, a few dollars at most, but the message was sharp enough to cut bone. I did not speak. I watched everyone tuck their envelopes into pockets and purses. I felt the cold plastic chair hard against my back. Sabrina told her viewers that justice had been served and that even fake heroes had to pay the bill like everyone else. My mother looked ready to cry but held her breath, afraid to make things worse. Grandmother May shook her head slowly, her hands trembling on her lap. Uncle Jack watched from his seat at the far end of the table. He had not said a single word. His eyes were steady, studying everyone the way a man studies a map. When Sabrina called me a drone gamer again, his gaze flicked toward her. Just a moment, a single second. Then he looked back down at his plate. He did not defend me. He did not correct her. At first, that silence felt like betrayal, too, but then I understood something. He was watching, not judging. Watching. In the corner of the yard, the American flag hung still too heavy with evening moisture to flutter. A boy tossed a football near the fence. Someone turned the music louder to cover the tension. Life kept moving as if nothing wrong was happening. The world often keeps spinning while one person slowly breaks. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My fingers did not shake. I opened the camera and snapped a photo of the empty seat at the table and the envelope of change being handed to someone else. Then I took a short video of Sabrina holding her phone and saying, "Who pays for the turkey?" I saved both files into a folder labeled Exhibit B. No one noticed. The file rested quietly in my phone like a hidden blade. I sat back and crossed my legs. The humiliation had reached its first peak. Every adult there could see my dignity being taken apart piece by piece, yet they pretended it was part of the holiday fun. I swallowed the anger because yelling would have given them what they wanted. A scene, a meltdown, something to laugh at. Instead, I chose silence. True silence. Not submission. Preparation. The sky turned darker and Christmas lights on the porch flickered on. I could feel the moment tightening like a string being pulled too far. Families that break you often do not realize they are building the very stage where their own shame will be revealed. I looked at Tyler and said nothing, but quietly inside, a decision locked into place. They wanted to see a show. They would get one, a quiet show, a true one. The kind that leaves a permanent mark. The evening should have quieted after the money was sorted, but humiliation has a way of feeding itself, especially when someone like Tyler thinks an audience is still watching. The porch lights glowed soft yellow across the backyard, and the air grew colder as the sun slipped behind the houses. I hoped the crowd would drift back to football and pie, but Tyler could not let it go. A little victory was not enough for him. He wanted a trophy. He dragged another chair to the center of the patio like a stage prop and announced that we should play a new game. He called it Military Trivia Night. He said if I was truly former military, everything would be easy for me. Sabrina perked up and lifted her phone again to live stream. She told her viewers she was about to expose the truth once and for all. A few neighbors leaned over the fence, sensing drama. The adults who should have stopped it simply watched, pretending it was harmless. Tyler started with simple questions, things that any person who watched documentaries might know, but his voice had that reckless confidence that comes when someone thinks they finally found a weapon. What does JTAC stand for? He folded his arms as if he were a judge, waiting for the accused to slip. I kept my voice calm and answered Joint Terminal Attack Controller. He forced a laugh and said anyone could Google that. Then he asked which airspace class would allow a specific type of approach near a civilian field on the West Coast. The question was wrong on purpose. He mixed pieces of different regulations together like puzzle pieces that did not fit. I knew it immediately. I could have corrected him, could have explained the right structure, and cleared the confusion, but that would have given him more rope to twist. So I answered just enough. I gave a partial explanation that was technically correct, but short of a full lecture. His eyes narrowed. He sensed that I knew more than I was saying. Other guests leaned forward like watchers at a circus. He asked another question about encrypted communications. Again, he changed terms around borrowing half from gaming chat and half from military abbreviations. I explained that the phrasing was wrong, but the core idea related to coordination under specific weather conditions. His jaw clenched. He had expected me to panic or fumble, but I gave him nothing to grab. The quiet is what made him furious. He started pacing and tapping his phone, searching for questions that might trap me. He showed a meme of aircraft silhouettes and asked me to identify one. I named the wrong one on purpose. The entire backyard erupted. Sabrina announced that I must have found all my information on YouTube. A few cousins clapped. One uncle joked that I should get a refund on my imaginary service. The laughter rolled across the lawn like a wave. I let it wash over me. There's a difference between losing and choosing not to win. The more confident they became, the quieter I stayed. Tyler finished his performance with a smug bow. He told everyone the court of public opinion had delivered a verdict. He announced that the only place I belonged was behind a screen, not in a cockpit or command center. Then, as if humiliation was not enough, he went for money again. He pointed toward the driveway and told the story of his shiny pickup truck. He talked about how he paid $600 every month without missing a payment. He bragged about working overtime, about handling adult responsibilities, about how real men keep their finances clean. He said all this while his younger brother nodded, and Sabrina filmed him like he was delivering a motivational speech. A few guests clapped. Someone said he should teach me how to manage money. Someone else said maybe the military did not pay well for fake soldiers. That was when Grandmother May shifted in her chair. Her face tightened in a way I had never seen from her before. She whispered something only I could hear. She said Tyler had borrowed $3,000 from her when his truck broke down last year and had not paid a cent back. She said she did not want to make a scene because she loved her grandchildren, but sometimes love makes people too quiet for too long. As she spoke, her voice trembled. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to defend her. Instead, I squeezed her hand and nodded once. No words, just understanding. Tyler kept talking about his payment history, his pride, his hard work. He believed himself. People who lie long enough eventually swallow their own stories. I pulled out my phone and tapped the Notes app. Exhibit C unpaid $3,000 May. I saved it into the same folder as Exhibit A and Exhibit B. Tiny pieces of truth, quiet pieces. They looked harmless, but they were sharp. Someone shouted for the quiz to continue. Tyler asked what year I enlisted. I gave a vague answer. He asked which base I trained on. I said a name that could apply to multiple units. Sabrina laughed and told her live stream that I was dodging every question. I let her believe it. The more she talked, the more she exposed her cruelty. The camera caught her smug smirk, her rolling eyes, and her taunts. The viewers who watched her video would not forget that. Aunt Karen tried to change the subject by offering pumpkin pie. People ignored her. They were enjoying the show too much. My mother stood next to me and said in a quiet voice that I did not have to prove anything. I told her I knew. When she asked why I stayed, I answered because leaving would mean they won. The words were soft, but they carried weight. Uncle Jack remained silent. He had the stillness of a man who could see every angle of a situation before acting. The quiz ended when Tyler ran out of questions. He bowed again as if he had defeated an opponent. The crowd began to disperse. Some people went inside to watch football. Others walked toward the dessert table. Sabrina posted clips online and told her viewers to vote on the funniest moment. I sat in that hard plastic chair and let the cold wind brush against my face. Anger churned just beneath the surface, but it did not control me. It sharpened me. I breathed once, then again, steady and slow. Families that break you do not realize they are also building the evidence you will use later. That is the thing about quiet justice. It is patient, it is methodical, it is inevitable. The quiz should have been the end, but humiliation is addictive when the crowd smells weakness. Dinner plates were cleared, the sun had disappeared behind the neighbor's roof, and the porch lights buzzed softly against the dark. People drifted into little circles, laughing and replaying the trivia game as if it had been a harmless show. I picked up stray cups and napkins without being asked. I moved slowly, hoping the evening would fade into something normal. Then Grandmother May, who rarely spoke loud enough for anyone but me to hear, asked a question that changed the temperature of the entire yard. She said, "Riley, remind me, what is your call sign again?" She said it casually with love, the way a grandmother asks about a favorite hobby. The backyard froze. Not visibly at first. The change came in the way heads tilted and conversation stopped mid-sentence. Even the music from the living room seemed to drop in volume. A silence formed around us, heavy and curious. I could have lied. I could have laughed it off. But every humiliation tonight had been built from lies or twisted truths, and I refused to add another one. I answered clearly. Falcon Two. The words did not echo, but they felt louder than anything said that night. Sabrina burst into laughter, sharp and high. She told her phone that Falcon 2 was obviously a gamer nickname. Someone shouted that my call sign should be Pretend Pilot. Someone else suggested Keyboard Captain. The laughter swelled again, loud and careless. But during that moment of noise, one person did not laugh. Uncle Jack. He had been sitting quietly with a beer bottle resting on his knee. When I said Falcon 2, his breath paused for half a second. His head tipped slightly downward and his eyes narrowed at the ground. A man who had spent years in silent secrecy and discipline does not react the way civilians do. He did not gasp. He did not stand. He just listened. And that tiny shift in his face told me everything. He knew that call sign. Maybe not the person behind it, but he knew the voice from a radio somewhere far away. But his stillness only lasted a moment. Then he looked down at his drink and stayed silent, choosing observation over confrontation. Sabrina, energized by her audience, walked toward me with her phone raised. She asked if Falcon 2 wanted to show proof. She asked if I had receipts from the military store or screenshots of my imaginary missions. People chuckled. One cousin asked if I had unlocked the new level. I did not answer. Their laughter filled the air like cold smoke. Tyler stepped in again because he could not stand a silent stage. He told the live stream that talk was cheap and payments were loud. He said I should open my Venmo app right now and send $480 to cover the catering bill, since real soldiers always pay their debts. He wanted to humiliate me in front of the camera to make it seem like I was broke or hiding. That was his real goal. Money is a quiet weapon. It cuts differently. My mother, Denise, tried to step between us and told Tyler to stop. He told her not to baby me. He said if I could sit in war zones, then I could handle a simple holiday bill. Grandmother May held my hand under the table. She whispered that I did not have to pay anything. But I stood slowly, brushed crumbs from my pants, and said I would transfer the money. The crowd leaned closer. Sabrina lifted her phone higher so her viewers could see my screen. I unlocked my phone and opened the app. My expression stayed neutral. Then I asked Tyler to hand me the catering invoice again. He looked confused, but passed it over. I read every line. I studied the date, the restaurant name, the listed price, the tax, and the tip. I asked him if he wanted the payment recorded under his name or under Sabrina's, since she handled the live stream. The question rattled him because it made the moment more real. He mumbled that it should go under his. I nodded and typed in his handle. I transferred $240, exactly half of the cost. Gasps rippled across the patio. Tyler demanded to know why I only paid half. That was when I asked another simple question. "Where is the receipt for the wine and the outdoor seating fee?" He stuttered. Sabrina lowered the phone slightly. I asked where the official invoice was not the screenshot he printed from his email. He said he did not need proof because everyone saw the food. I said that legally, if money was exchanged among family members for a combined event, receipts should be attached for transparency. The adults who understood paperwork and taxes shifted uncomfortably. People who had stayed silent suddenly remembered how expensive holidays could be. While Tyler scrambled for words, I pressed send. My payment hit his account with a visible transaction stamp. Under the memo line, I wrote partial payment pending receipts and offsets owed to May $3,000. A few people gasped. A few others pretended not to hear. Sabrina lowered her phone an inch. Uncle Jack took one slow sip of beer, eyes still down, but listening to every word. Tyler demanded to know what the memo meant. I stayed calm. I simply said that since family dealings should be transparent, any payments between us would be adjusted against the $3,000 he borrowed from Grandmother May last year. He turned red. The crowd murmured. Someone whispered that they had heard about that loan. Someone else said they thought he paid it back long ago. Tyler shouted that the loan had nothing to do with Thanksgiving. I replied that debt does not vanish just because turkey is on the table. Sabrina accused me of trying to embarrass him. The irony of that accusation hung in the air like a heavy curtain. I told her the memo was public record on the app. No secrets, no drama, just math. Aunt Karen finally stepped forward, voice shaking, and said she did not want her house to be a courtroom. I agreed. My voice stayed soft. I said I did not want arguments either. I only wanted accuracy. That single sentence carried more force than shouting ever could. Tyler stared at his phone, scrolling the memo again and again, as if he could delete it by glaring hard enough. The guests grew quiet, uncomfortable, unsure which side to stand on. It was a moment of stillness, small but powerful. I sat back down in the plastic chair and placed my phone in my lap. I took a slow breath. Mini revenge is like a needle, small, precise, but it lets the pressure out in the right place. I thought the night could not sink lower, but humiliation grows legs when people are bored and full of wine. Plates of pumpkin pie appeared. Kids ran inside for whipped cream. The adults drifted into small clusters again, whispering about the memo I wrote on the payment. Tyler tried to make jokes to recover his pride, but his voice trembled. Sabrina wanted revenge for the quiet way I had flipped the financial script. She needed a moment that would make the crowd laugh again. So she opened her phone, tapped the screen a few times, and then held it high like a trophy. The screen showed a meme. My face had been cut and pasted onto the body of a man in pajamas, holding a video game controller with a cartoon drone exploding in the background. The text said, "Remote soldier reporting for dinner," and the crowd burst into laughter. Not little laughs, loud ones, ugly ones. Laughter that makes people slap their legs and wipe their eyes even though nothing is truly funny. Cousins took out their phones and asked her to send them the file. Within seconds, it began popping up in group chats, then on Facebook stories, then on Sabrina's live stream. The comments rolled in from strangers watching online. People typed that I should get a medal for most comfortable deployment. Someone asked if my call sign was Pillow Fighter. It hit harder than the trivia game. Not because the meme was cruel, but because the entire family enjoyed it. Family betrayal is not made from weapons. It is made from small smiles that look away, jokes that cut deeper than knives, and silence where protection should be. I placed my fork down and stood ready to leave. My mother reached for my arm. She whispered that we could just go home and forget this night. She looked tired, the kind of tired only mothers know when they watch their children swallow pain. I stepped toward the gate. Aunt Karen intercepted. She forced a strained smile and asked me not to make a scene. She said guests had come a long way and we should not ruin the evening over harmless fun. She told me to sit back down so everyone could enjoy themselves. That sentence carried a deeper sting than the laughter. Harmless fun. To them, humiliation was harmless. To them, my dignity was optional. I sat again not because her request deserved obedience, but because I was not done. Sometimes the enemy wants you to run. Sometimes the most powerful answer is stillness. Tyler saw that I returned to my chair and mistook it for surrender. He strutted back across the patio and announced the next insult. He said that since I was sitting at the most spacious outdoor table, I owed a $60 fee for furniture rental. He waved his phone like he had invented the bill on the spot. People chuckled again, not as loud this time, but enough to wound. $60 for a plastic patio table. It was ridiculous. It was childish. But it mirrored real life in painful, ordinary ways. Families weaponize money in small bites. They humiliate you with petty things because small debts feel bigger when an audience is watching. I stared at him without expression. I asked gently if he would like that charge documented in writing as well. His bravado faltered. He mumbled that it was just a joke. Sabrina called across the yard that real soldiers should afford $60. Someone clapped. Someone else filmed. I reached into the pocket of my jacket and touched the challenge coin hidden inside. A coin given only to certain people for certain missions. Its edges were smooth from the number of times I had held it. I did not show it. I did not flash it. I only rubbed my thumb across its surface as a reminder that their ignorance could not remove the truth of who I was. Then I slipped that coin into Grandmother May's wallet when she was not looking, tucking it behind her grocery coupons where only she would find it later. A quiet reminder that I was not the clown they believed. While the crowd laughed, Sabrina kept her phone lifted, live stream rolling. That was her mistake. Public humiliation cuts both ways when the evidence is recorded. I took out my phone. I opened a browser. I typed in the name of the company where Sabrina worked. I clicked the contact page and found the HR link. I composed a short message. I wrote that a concerning live stream had been circulating in which an employee mocked a veteran at a family gathering. I included the link to the live stream, the meme, and the comments. I did not sign my name. I wrote from the perspective of a concerned viewer. Anyone watching online could have sent it. It was not revenge fueled by anger. It was accountability fueled by facts. The send button glowed in the corner of the screen. I pressed it. The message was gone. And no one noticed because they were too busy laughing. That was the second quiet turn of the night. No shouting, no plates thrown, only a simple email. Mini revenge does not explode. It ripples. While they laughed at the meme, I leaned back in my chair and breathed. Aunt Karen tried to resume normal conversation, urging everyone to enjoy dessert. The children returned with sticky fingers and frosting on their cheeks. The grown-ups tried to pretend the cruelty was playful, but something in the air had shifted. The meme was supposed to make me small. Instead, it made them look small. People who have dignity do not need to prove it. People who are losing theirs cannot stop trying. The laughter slowly died down. Plates clinked quietly. Tyler stared at his phone and refreshed again and again, looking for a reaction from me. He found none. Sabrina walked past my chair, whispering that no one cared about my feelings. I smiled politely and did not answer, because silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is preparation. The night air turned colder, and I knew it was not because of the November wind slipping through the wooden slats of the fence. Laughter had faded into scattered whispers, and the glow of the patio lights cast long shadows across the yard. I stood again. My chair slid against the concrete with a grating sound that made everyone glance up. I told my mother in a quiet voice that we should leave. She nodded quickly, relieved at the idea of escape. Her eyes shone with the shame of a parent watching her child be humiliated by blood relatives who should have protected her. We walked toward the back gate. I could hear Sabrina in the background telling her live stream viewers that the soldier was running home. Before my hand touched the latch, my phone vibrated. A familiar alert tone, the one I had not changed since my deployment days. I looked at the screen. A secure voice clip had arrived from an old teammate. No names displayed, only the audio icon waiting to be pressed. My thumb hovered, hesitating. Then I tapped play. The clip was short, less than 5 seconds, but it broke open something inside my chest. A male voice, calm and clipped, speaking amid static and distant noise, said, "Falcon 2 cleared hot friendlies at 100 meters, confirm laser." I felt a chill run down my spine. The voice was real. The mission was real. That phrase was tattooed into my memory because it had been the moment the team escaped without casualties. I could still see the desert skyline through the camera feed, the hum of the aircraft engine, the glow of heat signatures, the countdown of seconds that determined who would breathe another day. The world around me faded. I was not in the backyard anymore. I was in the small operations room in September 2024 inside a secured building in the Middle East near a base whose name I could never speak. I remembered the headset pressing into my cheek, the quiet intensity of people who work far from the battlefield yet carry its weight. My role had been to guide a team of SEAL operators who were boxed in by enemy movement. I could not see their faces, only blips of heat and dust on the screen. But I heard their breath rise and fall through the radio, steady and brave. A junior operator called out that they were pinned. Their exfil route had been blocked. The lead SEAL had asked for confirmation of my position. I replied with coordinates. My voice did not shake. I marked targets that would clear a safe path for them to retreat. The laser designated the route. The team sprinted under the cover of precise action. And in the final moment, the phrase came across my headset. Falcon 2 cleared hot. The feeling of relief when they reached safety was a kind of victory few will ever understand. Not loud, not celebrated, just quiet life, preserved breath by breath. The memory snapped as someone tugged my sleeve. My mother whispered that we should go, but I could not walk away anymore. Silence had protected my privacy, my duty, my professional boundaries. Yet here, among family who should have shown respect, silence was being treated like weakness. If I left, the humiliation would become the truth in their minds. And sometimes, truth needs witnesses. I turned back toward the patio. My mother looked confused, but she followed. People noticed us return and fell into a hush. Tyler smirked, ready for another joke. He said we forgot to pay the $60 table fee. Sabrina lifted her phone again to catch the reaction. I put my phone on the table screen down. Inside my chest, something settled. Not anger, not pride, just clarity. I had been patient. I had given them every chance to be human. They chose cruelty, so I would choose truth. Not shouted, not flaunted, shown. Evidence does not scream, it simply exists, and evidence changes everything. My mind repeated a quiet sentence. I say nothing because I must, but silence is not surrender. They thought I had been quiet because I feared them. They had no idea that I had been quiet because I respected the oath I signed. But tonight, that silence felt like a door locking behind me. I sat in my chair again. I looked at Tyler. I smiled. He did not like the smile. He shifted his weight. The cousins stopped laughing. Aunt Karen asked if everything was all right. I said yes. Everything was about to be all right. The voice clip still echoed in my ears. Falcon 2, cleared hot, friendlies safe. In that mission, I had been calm under pressure. I had guided men through danger without ever stepping outside the room. Here, I would do the same. Guide this evening toward truth without raising my voice. I thought to myself that if they wanted a show, they would get one, but not the kind they expected. They wanted humiliation. They would receive revelation. They wanted to laugh. They would end up explaining themselves to the very man they bragged about. I picked up a napkin and folded it. My mother watched, confused. I whispered to her that we were staying. She did not argue. She saw something in my face that made her trust me. Above us, the American flag tied to the fence fluttered in the wind. I could almost hear the quiet hum of an aircraft, though it was only memory. Dolphin lights from the patio cast thin shadows across the wooden deck. I waited, calm, focused. In operations, timing decides everything. Too early and the message loses power. Too late and the damage is done. The right moment would come soon. Until then, I let them think they had won. The world teaches you that revenge is loud. The military teaches you that the most effective actions are silent. I glanced at Aunt Karen's centerpiece on the table, little ceramic pumpkins and fake leaves arranged in a circle. I traced my finger along the napkin. I breathed. My heartbeat slowed. I realized something important. I was not hurting from their insults anymore. I was disappointed. They did not see me. They only saw their version of me. And I was done living inside that version. My voice in my head was clear. Do not leave. Present the truth. Make sure every person here carries the weight of what they chose tonight. I straightened in my chair. Tomorrow they would wake up and pretend this dinner had been harmless fun, but tonight everything would change. The moment arrived faster than I expected, not from anything I did, but from a careless tap of Sabrina's finger. She had opened her Bluetooth menu to connect a speaker for music, because the yard had grown too quiet, and quiet made her uncomfortable. She scrolled through her phone, hunting for a playlist that might revive the mood. Then a voice burst through the speaker, not a song, not a joke, but a sharp transmission that cut the air clean in half. Falcon 2 cleared hot. Friendlies moving. Confirm laser. The words echoed across the patio and bounced against the shed wall. People froze mid-sip, mid-chew, mid-breath. The children stopped running. Even the night insects seemed to fall silent. Sabrina stared at her screen, confused. She had accidentally selected one of her recent Bluetooth files, a clip she must have grabbed from Tyler's phone without checking. But that mistake was the key that unlocked everything. The voice was unmistakable to anyone who had ever served or even known a real soldier. Professional tone, steady breathing, clipped consonants, and not a trace of theater. It was the kind of voice that belonged to someone who spoke under pressure. Chairs scraped the ground. A few cousins looked around, trying to remember if that clip had come from the meme or another prank. Then a voice snapped like a whip. It was Uncle Jack. Jack Reed, former Navy SEAL, the one everyone bragged about the family trophy they held up whenever outsiders visited. He shot to his feet so fast that his chair fell backward. The metal legs smacked the concrete. His face had gone stone still. His eyes were locked on the speaker, as if the yard had turned into a battlefield. He asked, "Who just played Falcon 2?" Nobody answered. Sabrina stammered that it was some audio Tyler found online. She tried to laugh it off. Jack's voice rolled deeper. That was not a video game. That was radio traffic. Who was Falcon 2? The wind pressed the flag against the fence. The patio lights hummed. Tyler raised both hands and said he had no idea what the clip was. He joked that maybe it came from one of Riley's imaginary missions. His voice shook. I stood. My mother stood with me. I felt the weight of 1,000 small humiliations gather behind my ribs. Every insult, every giggle, every snide comment, every meme, every doubt. They gathered like dry leaves waiting for a spark. I spoke clearly so every ear could hear. That was me. Falcon 2. Jack turned toward me so suddenly that several people flinched. His expression was not angry. It was something far heavier. Recognition. He looked at me as if I were someone new, even though I had been standing beside him all evening. He asked one more time, "Riley, are you Falcon 2?" I nodded once. No theatrics, no apology for existing. Just truth. The yard held its breath. Tyler tried to interrupt. He laughed loudly, forcing the sound through his panic. He yelled that anyone could fake a radio clip. He accused me of manipulating audio to embarrass him. He walked toward the speaker to disconnect it. Jack spoke again, but this time his voice was different. It was command. Full authority. Full weight. He said, "Tyler, apologize now." The entire yard jolted. No one had ever heard Jack speak like that outside of a family funeral. His tone did not allow argument. It did not allow sarcasm. It demanded obedience. Tyler froze. His mouth opened and closed like someone searching for words underwater. He managed to mumble that it was all just a joke. He tried to shrug. He tried to look tough, but his legs trembled. Sabrina stepped toward him, muttering that the clip must be fake. She insisted there was no way I had ever worked with real operators. She said if I had, someone would have thanked me. Someone would have sent a medal. Real teams do not have drone girls. Her voice rattled on until I reached into my bag. I placed a black envelope on the table. No ceremony, no dramatic pause. I simply set it down where everyone could see. The yard leaned forward. I opened the flap slowly. Inside were 3 things: a redacted commendation letter with signatures blurred and identifying details removed legally, a photograph showing a shadowed team boarding an aircraft, the faces hidden, the insignia covered, and the coin that had lived in my pocket all evening, waiting for a moment that deserved silence more than applause. I set the coin on top of the letter. It caught the patio light. The emblem gleamed for half a second before it rested still. Jack stepped forward and picked up the coin. He turned it over in his hand. There was no mistaking it. It came from a specific mission, given only to those whose actions directly protected lives. He exhaled so quietly that only I saw his chest fall. He looked at me with a different kind of respect, the kind soldiers give to each other when words are unnecessary. He turned to Tyler. "Lane, apologize. Now." Tyler stuttered that he did not know. He claimed he thought it was all pretend. He blamed Sabrina. He blamed the alcohol. He blamed the memes. His sentences stumbled over each other. Aunt Karen held her mouth with both hands. My mother watched silently with tears. She refused to let fall. The cousins stared at the ground. The children hid behind chairs. Everyone understood the shift. The humiliation was over. The truth had entered the yard. But I was not angry. Anger would have made me loud. I was calm, and calm is more frightening. I told Tyler that humiliation cannot be undone with a single sorry. I told him that respect is earned, not demanded. And I told him something else. I said that every joke he made tonight, every dollar he waved, every petty insult, every stolen moment of laughter came from ignorance, not strength. He swallowed. He fumbled for words. He reached toward my arm as if begging. I stepped back. I told him to apologize to my mother first, to Grandmother May, and to every person watching on Sabrina's live stream. Jack folded his arms. He waited. Tyler sank to his knees because his legs would not hold him. He faced my mother. He apologized. It was messy and clumsy and full of excuses, but he said the words. Then he faced me. He whispered that he was sorry. It did not feel powerful. It felt small. But sometimes justice begins with the smallest crack. I picked up the coin and slid it back into my pocket. Then I asked a simple question that sliced the night open. Do you want to hear what Jack says next? Silence held the yard in a fist. Even the wind seemed to stop moving. Jack looked at the coin again, then placed it carefully on the table, as if it were something sacred. He straightened his shoulders and faced the entire family, not just Tyler. His voice was steady. He said that years ago, during a certain operation he could not describe, there had been a moment when his team needed eyes in the sky. He said that while most people think operators act alone, the truth is more complicated. He said there was a crew far from danger who used precision and calm to guide them home. He paused, letting every word sink in. Then Jack said, "There was a call sign that night. Falcon 2. Without her, we would not have made it out." The sentence struck harder than any shout. Aunt Karen pressed her hands to her chest. My mother covered her mouth. 2 cousins exchanged wide-eyed looks. The younger kids watched with confusion, sensing something important even if they did not understand the meaning. Jack turned to Tyler again. His tone sharpened. "You humiliated someone who protected men like me. You mocked service you do not understand. Apologize now and mean it." Tyler stared at the ground. Sweat gathered at his temples. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His face was pale. It was no longer a joke. It was no longer entertainment. It was judgment delivered by the very man he had used for bragging rights. Sabrina scrambled for her phone. She knew the live stream was still running and hundreds of people had already seen the twist. She rushed to end it. Her thumb tapped the screen, but a voice from near the fence spoke up. Too late. I recorded the whole thing. It was a neighbor, Mr. Collins, who lived next door. He had been watching from his porch and screen recording the live stream because he knew something was wrong. He stepped closer, still holding his phone. Sabrina's face drained of color. She opened her mouth to argue, but the proof was already captured. No deleting, no hiding, no pretending it never happened. The internet would have it by morning. That was the moment when every adult in the yard realized the night had crossed into permanent truth. No one could rewrite the story. No one could twist it later. I reached into my bag again. The crowd watched as if afraid of what would come next. I pulled out a printed sheet of paper folded neatly. Then I pulled out my phone. I stood next to Grandmother May and placed the paper in her hand. Her eyes widened when she saw the title. Promissory Note. Signed by Tyler Reed, $3,000, dated 6 months earlier. Above it, I showed her the Venmo log on my screen. Payment requests, small transfers, grocery money, emergency bills, all sent from her account to Tyler, never repaid. She looked up at me, startled. I whispered softly that I would take care of it. Soft recovery. No shouting, no police, no courtroom, just accountability. She nodded, a little embarrassed, but also relieved. The family heard enough to understand what was happening. Tyler stared at the paper in May's hand. His humiliation deepened. It was not only the military disrespect that exposed him, but the financial trail, the little debts, the secret borrowing, the family betrayal hidden under jokes and swagger. Dee Karen clutched the back of a chair so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She'd always defended her son. She'd always believed he was harmless. But the truth lay in front of her now, printed in black and white. Conflict justice has a strange sound. It is quiet. It is the sound of reality replacing excuses. I told the family that since Tyler insisted I pay for the turkey, I would be applying the cost against the $3,000 he owed Grandmother May. The numbers were simple. $480 for catering, $120 for wine, $60 for the ridiculous outdoor table fee, $660 total. That reduced the remaining balance to $2,340. My voice was calm, not angry, not theatrical. Calm. Which made every word hit harder. Tyler finally broke. His voice cracked. He said he was sorry. He said he had been stupid. He said he never meant harm. Jack did not offer comfort. He stood like a wall behind me. The same man Tyler had bragged about at every barbecue now stood silent on my side. The betrayal family karma had arrived. All the little humiliations Tyler had stacked against me, all the times he used me as a joke to inflate himself, folded back onto him. Sabrina tried to speak, but no one listened. People looked away from her. For the first time all night, she was irrelevant. Aunt Karen collapsed into a chair. She kept saying she did not know. She said she thought it was harmless. She asked how things had gone so wrong, but nothing had gone wrong. Everything had gone honest. Sabrina's phone buzzed with notifications. The live stream audience was reacting. Comments were pouring in. People who had watched her bully a relative on a holiday were not sympathetic. They were furious. I leaned toward Grandmother May and said quietly that I would help recover the debt without hurting anyone. She touched my hand. She said, "Thank you." Her voice trembled. Tyler tried to look at her, but she turned away. When a grandmother turns away from her grandson, the punishment is deeper than any fine. The public exposure moment was complete, not because I yelled, not because I fought, but because truth replaced lies. And truth was witnessed. That is what makes justice powerful. It does not need volume. It needs evidence. It needs eyes watching. Tyler whispered another apology, his voice barely audible. No one rushed to comfort him. The cousins who had laughed earlier avoided his gaze. Even the children seemed to understand that something serious had happened. Jack finally spoke again, but not to Tyler. He spoke to the whole family. He said that service takes many forms, and that disrespect was a stain no metal could wash off. He said he had seen men die with honor and men live without it. Tonight he said honor belonged to the quiet one in the chair, not the loud ones waving dollars and memes. And then he looked at me. He nodded once. That nod was worth 1,000 apologies. I sat back down. I took a sip of water. I let the silence work. Revenge does not always burn. Sometimes it freezes, and everyone feels the cold. The next 48 hours expose the cost of every joke, every meme, every careless word. Actions always return home, even when people think they can delete them. On Friday morning, Sabrina arrived at work expecting to pretend nothing had happened. She wore her usual bright scarf and brought a festive tumbler filled with cinnamon coffee ready to gossip with coworkers. 10 minutes after clocking in, her supervisor called her into a small glass office. The HR director waited with a printed stack of screenshots. Someone had sent a link to the live stream along with the screen recording the meme and a list of timestamps. The message had come from a viewer, not a family member, which made it impossible to call personal drama. The director asked if she wanted to explain why she had publicly mocked a veteran, encouraged others to laugh at her, and spread a meme that portrayed military service as a joke. Sabrina denied everything at first. She said it was family fun, harmless humor, nothing serious. The HR director pressed play on the video. Every word was there, every laugh, every taunt, every insult, even the part when Jack stood and ordered Tyler to apologize. HR informed Sabrina that she was suspended for 3 days, while the company reviewed whether she had violated policy regarding harassment company representation and online conduct. Sabrina left the building in tears, her pride punctured by the reality that humiliation carries a price. Meanwhile, Tyler arrived at his warehouse job for the night shift. He scanned in his badge and waited for the foreman to assign overtime hours. But overtime was given to the men who showed maturity, teamwork, and respect. The foreman pulled him into the break room and said he could not award extra hours to someone featured in a viral clip mocking a service member. The management had received a link as well. That link spread faster than gossip at a wedding reception. Tyler lost $200 just from that one night of lost overtime. The financial pain was still small compared to what Grandmother May had suffered, but it was a beginning. Back at Aunt Karen's house, our family gathered again, but this time the laughter was gone. People had questions they were afraid to ask out loud. Shame replaced the smugness that filled the air on Thanksgiving. Tyler sat at the kitchen table, pale and exhausted. His mother hovered behind him with trembling hands. Grandmother May placed her promissory note in front of him. She did not yell, she did not scold. She simply asked, "When will you repay what you owe me?" The weight of that sentence crushed him more than any lecture could. He stuttered that he would pay soon. He kept saying the word soon as if it were a magic shield. I stepped forward and set down 2 sheets of paper. One was the breakdown of the debt, $3,000 owed, subtracted $480 for catering, $120 for wine, $60 for the ridiculous table fee. That left $2,340. The second sheet was a simple plan for repayment, $195 each month for 12 months. May would receive every cent back. Aunt Karen would witness the agreement. Tyler would sign today. Tyler's face reddened. He tried to argue that it was too much, but the numbers did not care about his dignity. Dignity cannot pay debt. Debt pays debt. He picked up the pen with a shaking hand and signed his name. Aunt Karen signed under witness. May folded the papers and slid them into her purse. A small victory, but victories do not need to shout. They only need ink. Afterward, people tried to move on with the day. They ate leftovers in silence. They wiped counters. They stacked dishes. But humiliation had left fingerprints on every surface. I walked into the living room and turned on the television. The family Netflix profile loaded. For years, the account had been under my email. Everyone used it freely. Tyler never thanked me for it. Sabrina bragged about having premium access. They treated the convenience like entitlement. I opened the settings, selected my account, and removed every other user. The screen blinked. Suddenly, everyone lost access, a small, silent reminder that generosity is a gift, not an obligation. Sabrina gasped. Tyler demanded to know why. I answered calmly. I said that benefits are for people who respect others. Then I closed the app. Not dramatic, not cruel, just done. Mini revenge lives in the simple adjustments of everyday life. It is not about destruction, it is about correction. Later, when the house grew quiet, I sat with May at the dining room table. She worried that the family would resent me. I told her I did not care about resentment. I cared about her dignity. I cared about justice. I cared about protecting the people who had always protected me. Then I pulled out my phone and made a donation, $50 to the Fisher House Foundation. It provides housing for military families receiving medical treatment. In the donation memo, I wrote, "From Tyler R. Thanksgiving Lesson." May covered her mouth to hide a laugh. She said that kindness with a sharp edge is sometimes the only language a fool understands. She kissed my forehead and called me her quiet soldier. By Saturday evening, the ripple of consequences had grown. Friends unfriended Sabrina online. A co-worker of Tyler messaged me privately to say he supported me. People shared the story in neighborhood forums not as gossip, but as a reminder that respect matters. The shock of the night turned into reflection. The same cousins who mocked me began calling my mother to apologize. They said they had not known the truth. They said they had followed the crowd. They said they felt ashamed. My mother accepted the apologies, but her voice remained cool. She had watched her daughter humiliated by blood relatives. Forgiveness would not come cheaply. That evening, Tyler sent me a text saying he would start payment next Friday. I replied with a single sentence. Put it in writing. He sent a signed confirmation letter within 10 minutes. Fear can motivate faster than pride ever will. On Sunday, I sat in silence and watched the sun rise from my porch. The air smelled of cold earth and wood smoke from distant chimneys. I sipped coffee and breathed slowly. The quiet felt different now. Not heavy, not lonely, just steady. Justice had moved forward 1 inch at a time. No screaming, no threats, just truth and paper. And the night was not finished teaching its lessons. Because financial consequences were only the first chapter. Monday arrived like a witness. The sun rose, people went to work, and the world pretended nothing had happened, but consequences travel quietly. By noon, Tyler's supervisor called him into the main office. The foreman, 2 managers, and an HR representative sat around a folding table. A laptop screen showed the viral clip from Thanksgiving, the one where Tyler mocked a veteran while laughing with his beer raised like a trophy. The supervisor asked if the woman in the video was really a service member. Tyler hesitated, then admitted the truth. The manager leaned back in his chair and said the company supported veterans and military families. He said the warehouse partnered with local organizations for donations and events. Then he asked a question that cut deeper than any insult. Why should the company trust a man who publicly humiliated a veteran? Tyler stumbled over excuses. He blamed Sabrina, the alcohol family pressure. The HR representative interrupted. He said this was not about excuses. It was about character. They could not fire Tyler for something he did off the clock, but they could require corrective action. The supervisor gave him 2 choices. He could either lose his overtime eligibility for the next 60 days or issue a public apology to the veteran he humiliated. The apology would have to be witnessed, written, and shared with the warehouse staff. Tyler panicked. Overtime was the only way he paid his car loan. Without it, he was underwater. He left work and drove straight to my house. He knocked on my door like a man begging for water in a desert. My mother answered. She did not invite him in, she called for me. I stepped into the doorway and crossed my arms. Tyler asked if I would help him write a public relations statement, something professional, something that made him look remorseful. He said if I vouched for him, the warehouse would move on. He asked if I would say the clip was taken out of context. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I shook my head. I told him that my dignity was not a PR tool. I told him that apology without sincerity was manipulation. He begged. He said he could not lose overtime. He said Sabrina was already suspended and they could not afford more bills. My answer did not change. I told him that I would not clean up the mess he made, but I did hand him 2 things. The first was a basic apology template I wrote on a sheet of paper. 4 sentences. Simple. Honest. No excuses. The second was a printed list of USO volunteer shifts in Norfolk, 40 hours available over the next 2 weekends. I told him that if he wanted redemption, he could start by serving the community he mocked. He stared at the list as if it were written in another language. Then he asked if I would come with him so people would believe it was sincere. I refused. Redemption is personal. You cannot borrow someone else's respect. He left in silence, shoulders caved, steps heavy. That Friday evening, when most people were relaxing with leftovers and football, Tyler stood outside the USO building holding a clipboard. He checked in families, carried boxes of supplies, and set up tables for a dinner hosted for wounded veterans and their relatives. He wore work gloves and tried to smile. Some veterans nodded politely. Others recognized his face from the clip and said nothing. Silence can be louder than an insult. On Saturday, he returned for another shift. His back hurt. His legs ached. But he stayed because consequences do not disappear when they become uncomfortable. The next weekend, he came back again. He filled bags with toiletries. He poured coffee. He stacked chairs. A few volunteers learned his name. One of them asked if he was the guy from the video. He admitted it. They said they appreciated that he showed up. He did not brag about that comment at home. He kept it quiet as if saying it out loud might make the lesson crumble. Back at the Reed house, family tension cracked like thin ice. Aunt Karen avoided parties and grocery stores because neighbors whispered. She started cooking dinners for Grandmother May and helping her around the house as if kindness could patch what pride had broken. One night after Tyler's second volunteer weekend, Karen came to my door. She held a plate of food, but her hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. My mother invited her in. Karen burst into tears before she could sit down. She said she had been blind. She said she had chosen noise over truth and pride over kindness. She apologized for every word, every laugh, every time she let her son humiliate me. She said she felt responsible for the entire disaster. I told her gently that accountability was not punishment. It was repair. She sobbed harder. She said she wished she had raised her son better. She said that seeing Jack stand for me had broken something inside her. I placed my hand over hers. I told her that respect is not taught in speeches. It is learned through consequences. That night, Karen went home with a lighter heart. She finally understood. The family began to change. Not quickly, not perfectly, but change rarely moves fast. My mother told me she felt proud, not because the family apologized, but because I had not become cruel. Quiet justice is not about revenge for pleasure. It is about dignity over money, responsibility over excuses, truth over noise. Sometimes the world needs to watch someone repair what they damaged. The following week, Tyler completed all 40 hours of volunteering. He sent me a photo of his signed form. He did not include a caption. The silence in that message was different from the silence on Thanksgiving. It was the sound of someone learning. I never responded. Some lessons do not need applause. One evening in December, I saw Tyler at the grocery store. He was helping May carry bags. He kept his head down and opened doors for her. When he saw me, he nodded respectfully. Not for show. Real. Small. Steady. That nod meant more than any dramatic apology. It meant he understood. The quiet after the storm did not last long. Consequences have a way of echoing, especially when pride is still alive inside the person who caused the damage. 2 weeks after Tyler finished his USO volunteer hours, my phone buzzed late at night. The screen lit with his name. I almost ignored it, but something told me to read. His message was frantic. He asked if I could speak to Uncle Jack, maybe soften him, maybe tell him not to judge too harshly. He said he would delete every video, every meme, every trace of the live stream if I helped him. It was a bargain, a trade, an attempt to negotiate his way back into comfort. The audacity of it made me stare at the screen for a full minute. He still did not understand. He still thought the truth was a currency that could be exchanged if the price was high enough. I typed slowly without anger. I told him that the truth does not need his permission. I told him that consequences do not disappear because they are inconvenient. And I told him that I did not make deals with people who humiliated their own family. He begged. He said his friends teased him. He said the warehouse whispers every time he walks past. He said he could not take the judgment anymore. I replied with a single line. The truth does not negotiate. Then I followed with what would come next. I told him he would repay Grandmother May completely. Every cent. I told him he would not speak about me or my service online for 1 full year. And I told him that he would apologize again, not in a text, not in private, but in front of the family. A real apology. No excuses, no jokes, no tricks. He sent 10 messages in a row. He tried to argue. He claimed he was already suffering. He said I was being cruel. I did not respond. Silence is powerful when someone expects mercy they have not earned. The next day, Tyler came to May's house. He brought a small envelope with the first $200 of repayment. He handed it to her without looking up. His voice shook when he said he would continue paying every month. May nodded. She did not hug him. She did not scold him. She simply placed the envelope in her purse and said, "Thank you." The lack of warmth cut deeper than any shout. Later that week, Tyler tried another strategy. He asked if I could add him back to the family streaming accounts: Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV, the gym family plan, the home Wi-Fi bill. He reminded me that I had always handled the subscriptions. He reminded me that I had always shared freely. He said the house felt quiet without access. I told him that quiet was where reflection starts. Then I began the final everyday revenge. I logged into every account that had ever been under my name, all 4 streaming services: the home Wi-Fi, the gym family plan, the shared cloud storage. I changed every password. I removed every device. I restored each service to a single user, me. Then I opened a new message thread with Tyler. I sent one sentence: "From now on, people pay for what they use." The message delivered. He read it. He did not reply. The next morning, Aunt Karen texted my mother asking why the internet no longer worked on their devices. My mother responded softly that it must have been a billing adjustment. Nothing more. Actions speak louder than explanations. Later, Tyler tried one last attempt to buy sympathy. He called my mother and asked her to talk to me. He said he was trying. He said he wanted the family to move on. My mother told him something I did not expect. She said, "You should have thought about moving on before you tried to destroy my daughter in front of strangers." Tyler fell silent. She hung up first. Days passed. Then one evening, as I sat on my porch, sipping tea, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was not Tyler. It was Uncle Jack. His message was short. Just 3 words. "Proud of you." I stared at the screen and felt something soften inside me. Not pride, not triumph, just peace. Because the approval of a man who knew real sacrifice meant more than any apology Tyler could ever offer. A week later, Aunt Karen asked if we would join the family for Sunday dinner. She said Tyler had something to say. My mother agreed. We arrived to a small, quiet table. No live stream, no music, no jokes. Tyler stood when we walked in. His voice was low when he spoke. He apologized again. He apologized for the memes, the money, the lies, the humiliation. He apologized to May for taking advantage of her kindness. He apologized to me for making my service a joke. He did not cry, but his voice broke. He said he would repay the rest of the debt. He said he would keep his promise of silence online. He asked for nothing in return. No forgiveness, no shortcuts, just the chance to repair what he damaged. I listened. I nodded. I did not hug him. Forgiveness is not a gift given on command. Forgiveness is earned over time. After dinner, I walked home with my mother. She asked if I would ever trust Tyler again. I told her trust is like glass. You can glue it back together, but the cracks remain, and sometimes the cracks matter. That night, I received another message from Jack. He wrote that service does not always look the same, but character does. He said that standing up for yourself is its own kind of strength. When I closed my phone, I felt no anger, no bitterness, just the weight of closure. The family would always remember what happened, and they would remember who stayed calm, who stood with dignity, and who had to learn the hard way. Justice without hate. Revenge through truth. Quiet, steady, undeniable. Christmas came with a quiet kind of cold, the kind that made the ocean smell sharper along the Virginia Beach boardwalk. Lights hung from lampposts, and families strolled with paper cups of cocoa, while faint carols floated from the speakers near the visitor center. My mother and I walked slowly, boots crunching against the thin frost that covered the wooden planks. We did not speak much. Peace does not need conversation. It just needs room to breathe. Grandmother May had insisted we meet her at the bench overlooking the water. She sat bundled in her thick coat and knitted scarf, a gift she made for each grandchild every winter. When she saw us, she smiled in that small, gentle way that only grandmothers can soft but steady. She handed me a tiny frame wrapped in tissue paper. The frame was old gold around the edges, a little scratched from years in a drawer. Inside it was the $20 bill she had pressed into my hand on Thanksgiving, back when she thought I still had to buy the pumpkin pie. Under the bill, she had written, in careful cursive, "You do not owe me this. Keep it as a memory of who protected who." I stared at the note, my throat tight. That $20 had been small to everyone else, but not to her. It was her kindness, her belief that I needed help, her way of sheltering me in a house that had tried to turn against me. Now she was returning it not as debt, but as a reminder. She whispered, "I thought you were the one alone that night. Turns out you were the one guarding us." My mother squeezed my shoulder. The three of us sat together watching the ocean roll under a moonlit sky. No yelling, no accusations, no humiliation, just breath and tide. After a while, May said she needed to get home to rest. She hugged me tightly, kissed my cheek, and told me to live with peace, not anger. She walked slowly toward the parking lot, her steps steady, her dignity intact. My mother and I stayed a little longer. We sipped cocoa from a small vendor stand and warmed our fingers on the cups. The boardwalk glittered under the holiday lights. Children chased each other in puffy jackets. A couple held hands and laughed. Life moved gently. As we turned to go, I saw a familiar figure walking toward us. Jack. Hands in his coat pockets, head slightly bowed the way men do when they are thinking more than speaking. He stopped beside us and did not say a word. He only gave me a firm nod, a nod that meant respect, a nod that said, "I saw you," a nod that replaced every apology anyone else could have offered. Then he walked on, disappearing into the Christmas crowd. My mother exhaled her breath, forming a little cloud of white. She said she finally understood why I stayed that night. She said she was proud. We drove home through quiet streets decorated with strings of lights and inflatable snowmen. When we reached the house, I went to my room and opened the closet. Inside, wrapped carefully in cloth, was the shadow box I had carried to Thanksgiving and never revealed. Inside it were the items that proved everything without needing words. The coin, the letter, a folded patch, a photograph of a runway at dawn. I hung the shadow box on the wall above my desk, not in the living room, not in the hallway, not where every visitor could see it, just in my room where truth did not need an audience. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I turned off the light. Quiet justice does not ask for applause. It asks for receipts and self-respect. The new year arrived and the family slowly adjusted to its new shape. Tyler continued to make payments to May. Every month she handed me the envelope, and every month I deposited it for her. She never gloated. She never scolded. She simply accepted accountability the way dignity accepts sunlight. Sabrina did not attend family gatherings for a while. The cousins who once laughed too loudly learned to speak softly. They asked questions before they made jokes. People began listening instead of assuming. The Reed family did not become perfect. No family does. But they became aware. Sometimes awareness is the best apology. One afternoon in January, I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through messages on my phone. A few strangers had found my social media profile after the video spread. They sent notes thanking me for my service. Some were veterans, some were military spouses, some were teenagers who said they wanted to join the Air Force. I did not reply to all of them, but I read every word. In the evenings, I walked with my mother through the neighborhood. We talked about ordinary things, bills, weather, groceries, life. Peace comes from the everyday moments, not the dramatic ones. I stopped thinking about Thanksgiving as a humiliation. I started thinking of it as a turning point, a night where truth stepped out of the shadows and sat at the table, a night where loud voices were silenced by evidence, a night where dignity returned home. Months later, May handed me the final envelope. Tyler had finished paying the debt. She placed the envelope in my hand, but her eyes told me something deeper. She no longer saw me as the quiet girl who sat at the edge of family photos. She saw me as the protector in the room, the one who did not shout, did not break, did not surrender, the one who kept receipts and delivered justice without hate. That night, I placed the last deposit slip into a folder labeled Thanksgiving Lesson. I closed the folder and smiled. The lesson was complete. People often think revenge burns hot and fast, but the truest kind moves slowly, calmly, like water shaping stone. It leaves the world cleaner than before. It leaves the heart lighter. As I stood at my window looking out at the quiet street, I felt the weight of justice settle into balance. I thought to myself, the world is loud, but justice does not have to be. Justice can be silent. Justice can be steady. Justice can be kind. And those who earn the lesson will remember it every time they reach for the truth. If this story touched some part of your emotional resilience, share your own moment of standing up for yourself in the comments. And if you believe in silent revenge, dignity over money, and revenge through truth, subscribe and stay with us. There is always someone who needs truth and closure. There is always someone ready to reclaim respect.